In the last presidential election, Donald Trump won the state of North Carolina by just over 3 points. Now, to be clear, North Carolina has not gone for a Democrat since Barack Obama in 2008. When you look beyond the presidential results, Democrats pretty much ran the table in North Carolina last year. Democrat Josh Stein won the governor's race by nearly 15 points. A Democrat won the state attorney general's race. Democrats flipped the lieutenant governor's office and the office of the superintendent of public instruction, which is a very important job. It's the state's top education official. Republicans lost their supermajority in the legislature, meaning they can no longer reliably override vetoes from the Democratic governor. And the only real bright spot for North Carolina Republicans was the state auditor's race, which Republicans won for the first time in 20 years, which also probably explains why Republicans in the state legislature promptly set about stripping powers from the governor and attorney general, both Democrats, and handing those powers to the newly Republican state auditor. North Carolina's Republicans' frantic scramble after a string of losses probably ought to be setting off alarms for Republicans at the national level about just how tenuous their hold on the Tar Heel state really is. And yet, instead of shoring up support for North Carolina's few remaining Republican statewide elected officials, Donald Trump has essentially pushed North Carolina's Republican senior senator into giving up his seat. The announcement from Thom Tillis this weekend that he will oppose Trump's spending bill, which he says will put Medicaid coverage for over 600,000 North Carolinians at risk, followed by Trump's attacks on Tillis, and then Tillis's decision not to run for re-election next year, that creates a wide-open Senate race in 2026. In a state where Democrats did very well in the last election, where one Democratic congressman has already announced to run for the seat Tillis is leaving, and where a very popular two-term Democratic governor, Roy Cooper, may also be gearing up to run. We'll see. Maybe it's not such a deep red state after all. So how are Democrats in North Carolina going to take advantage of this opportunity? That's kind of the big question. Joining me now is the perfect person to answer it, Anderson Clayton, chair of the North Carolina Democratic Party. I always love talking to you, Anderson. You give me good spirit about what's possible. So let me just start by asking you, Thom Tillis not running kind of feels like a huge opportunity for Democrats. How much better do you and other Democrats in North Carolina feel chances are of winning back the Senate now versus last week?
I think that we felt confident even last week, especially when we saw Thom Tillis being willing to bend the knee to Republicans originally on this bill and cost over 3 million people in North Carolina that are on Medicaid right now access to health insurance, when we've already seen healthcare deserts across eastern North Carolina in particular impact communities and devastate whole regions, especially in an economic format, because you're talking about losing all livelihoods in communities when you rip away foundational community organizations and foundational building blocks of communities like hospitals, like your school system, other things that we've seen Republicans come after aggressively with this budget and also with federal cuts right now.
I know you're not, just so everybody knows this who's watching, you're never going to take a position in a primary. You're the party chair. There's one candidate currently in the race. When do you expect? The big question right now is whether former Governor Roy Cooper, who's very popular, is going to get in the race. I know you're not going to know the answer to that. But is there a timeline? When does he need to make a decision? When do you expect he'll make a decision? Anything you can tell us on that?
Look, I think that Governor Cooper, as we've all seen, has been eyeballing this race definitely. And what I've heard, I can at least tell you across the 50 counties that we're doing this rural tour that the North Carolina Democratic Party has embarked on since the beginning of the summer throughout eastern North Carolina. What I've heard from a lot of folks on the ground is that they would be really excited to see Governor Cooper enter this race. I think the party's job is to always think about how do we best support the candidate. A Democratic Party is the operation that the candidate drives their cars on. We are the road in which they drive their cars on. And so I want to make sure the roads and the areas to get out to every county in North Carolina is sufficient for all of our candidates, which means that we're organizing in every county in North Carolina right now. We've been doing Republican accountability canvases already this year. We've had 35 all across the state, and North Carolina Democrats have 30,000 active volunteers right now that are geared up and prepared for municipal elections in 25 and also midterm elections in 26. It's a different ground game than we've seen before in this state, and I'm really proud of the folks out there working with us. And if you'd like to get involved, you can go to ncdp.org. We're always looking for folks to come out and knock doors with us.